I said we're going to be surprised, but I didn't know that we're going to be surprised on the local scene as opposed to the national scene on Petraeus.
In what way, as far as the local scene?
Jeff Fox.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because I had mentioned to you that, or I had mentioned to our audience that I wanted to talk about that with you and social media and the implications. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have tons of thoughts. One is I feel very sad for Jeff Fox and his family. I've never met the man, but he was nice enough to, in fact, just last week, post a guest blog on my website, CP Pet Lovers, about the dog Doppler that he adopted. But it's a fascinating case from different angles, and part of it is the story that the JRC had with CT Talking picked up on about now there's calls for legislation. This is going to be very, very complicated because there are basically two kinds of employees in Connecticut. There are people like Jeff Fox who were contract employees, which meant that their jobs were protected by a contract. And their employer was also protected by a contract, which meant that he couldn't be let go for just any old reason. Now, my guess is that his contract had a morals clause in there.
Right.
And which I assume that the Tribune used the morals clause to dismiss him. Now, for the rest of us, we are, well, those of us employed, which doesn't include the two of us, we're self-employed, right?
Right.
But people who work for companies otherwise, unless they belong to a union and there's a union contract, we're referred to as employees at will. That means that an employer can dismiss these individuals for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason. The only thing that they can't dismiss you for is an illegal reason. In other words, they can't dismiss you on race, age, sex, health, certain freedom of speech limits.
Essentially, something that would be considered discriminatory, they cannot dismiss you on.
Right. Otherwise, if you walk in and your boss says to himself, you know what, I really don't like his haircut, you're fired. There's not a thing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. And most of the states in the country are employment at will, which means that you can leave anytime you want, and your employee could have you depart any time that the employer wants,
right.
As long as it's non-discriminatory and there's not a contract of some kind. So now getting into the social media,
mm-hmm.
It is, I mean, so many people have warned about it.
Right.
You know, and most of the warnings went to kids, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19, about stupid things that, you know, college students post on Facebook about their drunken parties and
or their principals, or what. Even the case of Lewis Mills in Region 10, when that student posted something critical of the administration, and it led to her removal as the secretary of her class.
Right. I was speaking more on the level of that most of the warnings had been about, hey, at some point you're going to grow up.
Right.
And you're going to want a job. And the first thing that an employer is going to do is going to check your social network and see what kinds of stupidity you've been involved in. But now it turns out it's the older generations that need warning. Both Petraeus and Jeff are 60 years old.
That's right.
And both of them have a lot of experience with social media, Gmail, and Facebook, because for the jobs they're required to. And once you post something on Twitter or Facebook, you just can't call it back.
Nope.
It is gone and it's out there, and the repercussions are terrible. So it doesn't sound like Fox 61 is going to relent at all. So that's strike two for Jeff. I hope he lands on his feet.
I do too, but I guess the legislative part of all of this, so that people understand what we're talking about, there are 4 states, New York State among them, which has a law which says that your off-duty behavior is protected. In other words, you cannot fire a worker or use in a job hiring process what they put on their social sites against them. You cannot do that in New York and 3 other states.
Well, I wonder how you enforce that.
That's the question. That's the question. I guess one of the ways you might be able to enforce it is a prospective employer, for example, just cannot go on your Facebook page. They have to, let's say, ask to be your friend or some sort of connection. And if you deny that connection, George, they can't use that against you. Whereas in a state where there are no laws, apparently they could use that against you.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that the laws were passed after a Chicago case where a person wanted to get a job and they had their Facebook page locked down so that only certain individuals could see their Facebook page, and the employer demanded the password so that the employer could see exactly what was on a Facebook page, and the person refused, and she didn't get the job. I think in that case it will protect somebody, but most Facebook users allow anybody to see their Facebook page. I mean, that's part of the thrill of Facebook, or is that you want to have as many friends as possible, and you want to share your experience with them. So I don't see how you can really legislate. You can really legislate that. And the reality is that in many jobs, your private behavior does impact on your employer.
But you know what, George, you think about this from several angles, and I know from where you come on this, and we're probably on the same page, but here's what I find disturbing about it. Let's say, for example, you're an Obama supporter, and you decide to post something on Facebook or on Twitter that's favorable towards Obama, a favorable story,
Right.
and you go for a job interview, and the person conducting the job interview or doing the hiring doesn't like Obama. So suddenly you're disqualified, even though you may be very qualified for the job, because you posted something praiseworthy for Obama. In other words, you don't even have to be critical on Facebook. But if you were to post something positive,
Right.
if that prospective employer didn't like what you were posting, then you don't have a job.
Well, I think it's a very, very complicated issue. But to me, posting something that you're pro-Obama on your Facebook is similar to having an Obama a button on your lapel when you walk into a job interview.